Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in.
Michael Klassen is a veteran broadcast producer, podcaster, and creative visionary who has spent years shaping how stories are told across news, sports, and film. As the co-founder and host of the 5 a.m. podcast, Michael helps listeners transform their morning into engines of productivity and purpose. His work blends faith, leadership, and storytelling, making complex ideas both accessible and inspiring. With roots in television production and an ongoing passion for meaningful content, Michael brings a unique perspective on how media, especially television, has evolved to shape culture, faith, and public opinion. On this special What Television Day episode, we explore the power of media in forming collective values and how intentional storytelling can help build a better world. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Well, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. What first drew you into broadcast television and storytelling?
Oh man, I just loved television as a youngster. And there was a few other things that I had wanted to do growing up, as far as career wise, as probably most children have. But man, I loved watching TV. I loved, kind of the magic, the mystery of it. I loved how it was put together, and it was edifying for me. And so I thought, man, this is something I could do. I could tell stories. I loved hearing stories, so I could tell stories. And that's how I got into it. Even as a teenager finishing my last year of high school, being able to get into doing video assignments for my teachers instead of written assignments. And then as soon as I was out of school, I was volunteering actually at a TV station in my community.
Wow. Oh, that was, you know, very, very, very young. A long time ago, though.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So I was like 17 at the time.
Yeah. Wow. Um, how would you describe the way television has shaped people's habits, values, and perception in its early days, though?
Oh, man, you know that phrase, "Seeing is believing."
Yeah.
And people want to believe. People want to believe. We're created by God to find him or to be found by him. And so we're always looking for meaning. We have 2 eyes, we have 1 mouth, we have 1 nose, we have 2 ears. So
Yeah.
it's like we have double the function to listen and to
Yeah. And to
watch
see. Yeah.
and to see. And so it's so critical. My mom would always sing this song to us, "Be careful, little ears, what you hear, and be careful, little eyes, what you see," because the Father up above is looking down in love. But part of that whole thing is that we're attracted by what we see and what we hear. The only thing that television doesn't cover is our smells. But I bet many of your listeners, when they're watching something online or in a movie and something is happening, their brain is filling in the missing aroma or smell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's, yeah, go ahead.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
And so in one sense, we're blessed to be able to use it as a form of communication, but in another sense, we have to be really careful what we let in through that eye gate. And, there's a lot of deceivers around us. There's a lot of good people and blessing people as well, but there's a lot of deceivers around us who, they want to make merchandise of us. And television has a very interesting history as well.
Yeah. Well. Well.
If you
Uh.
if you'd like, I can get into the
Yeah. Please.
spiritual
Please do.
history of it.
Let's start from the very beginning.
Yes. So when electricity came out, there was a lot of there had been a lot of death and destruction through different wars and different plagues and things like that. And so people were experimenting with electricity, which was also new at the time, of how they could actually talk to the spirits. And so then a different form. Like I know that you're in Africa, I'm in Canada, and so we have different upbringings. There's different spiritual practices and foundations in the land, even. And there was, I'm just checking my notes here. There's a fellow by the name of Stefan Andriopoulos, and he wrote a book on television's occult origins.
Wow.
And so he had a book called Ghostly Apparitions, German Idealism, Optical Media, the Gothic novel. So he provided a fascinating exploration in this book of television's occult origins. And the author reveals that television was initially conceived within the framework heavily influenced by spiritualism and occult concepts. So his research actually begins in the 18th century to the early 20th century. And so that there is a cultural use of this new media technology was completely linked uh, with conversations around the occult, speaking with the dead, trying to find a way to communicate with the dead. And so, what we call television today was first envisioned as this technical device for seeing at a distance. So if we think of telegraph, which is writing at a distance, so we don't even use telegraph anymore, but we use
Yeah.
email. And then we have telephone, which means speaking at a distance. So then television means to see at a distance. So it parallels how spiritual mediums claim to be able to break through those physical limitations into that spiritual realm, which is attractive to so many people. And what the occultists, the spiritualists, both groups were looking for was this two-directional exchange. And in one sense, the two-directional exchange in between the dead and the living. And then there was also that two-directional exchange between spiritualism, occultism, and technology. So early television-like devices were developed for occult research, and they played this very strong component role in the emergence of radio and television. So it's like that technology was growing up alongside this occult and this spiritual research. And that's partly where when you have a television set, you have channels.
Yeah.
And so that comes from being able to channel spirits.
Yeah. Channels. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And so that language and metaphors of spiritualism shaped even how the technology was described and understood. And then if you look at the word medium, well, a medium can have that double meaning as well, both as a
Yeah.
channel for information and then a person that channels spirits. And yeah, so it's very interesting to go back and look at this history. There's more of it too, but I don't want to talk for too long.
Yeah. Wow. Channels, medium. Now that you say it,
Yes.
it's hard to miss. It becomes obvious.
Yes, yes. Well, when we look to language, and the words we use, I find it a lot, whether it's even like with ships, we hear about spaceship, we hear about the ships that go across the ocean and bringing cargo, but just like a baby goes down a birth canal, a ship has a berth that it rests in and it goes through a canal. And
Yeah.
there's a doctor that delivers the baby and the ship goes up to the dock and
Yeah.
so there's a lot, but
Yeah.
your listeners may remember hearing of Thomas Edison. Of course, we hear
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
uh,
Light
you
bulb.
know um, um, Nikola Tesla and Elon, of course, who has the Tesla company, and then Thomas Edison. Well,
Yeah.
wouldn't you know it that in 1920, he announced he was working on with electricity and other things like this as well, but he actually announced his intention to create a spirit communication device and
Well.
essentially a specially designed telephone that could pick up spirit communications. And we can't forget, so many times we just see the physical around us. We don't see the spiritual around us. And Edison's theory involved what he called life units. And he thought there was these tiny entities that he believed composed human beings. And then he had this idea that when people would die, these spiritual components or these little units would move on to somebody else, kind of like what Christians or other people might call like generational spirits or familiar spirits.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to create this device that would capture the vibrations of these spiritual units. And Edison approached this product with the same determination that characterized all of his other work. And he stated if personality survives, and of course, the Bible tells us to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and different religious beliefs have different ideas about this.
Yeah.
But Thomas Edison thought if our personality survives, then it is strictly logical and scientific to assume that it retains memory and intellect and other faculties and knowledge that we acquire on Earth. So he
Yeah.
said, therefore, if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be affected by our personality as it survives in the next life, he was hoping that he could find a way to communicate with that spiritual essence.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you for taking us to the very, very beginning of it all. It
Yes.
changes how we see we see we see the gadgets. Just
Uh
knowing the
huh.
story behind it changes how
Yes.
we see them. Uh,
Yeah. Yes. And there's a lake in Italy, I believe it's called Lake Diana, and, around the time of Christ, before and after Jesus Christ's time on earth, people would sacrifice animals and individuals into that lake, and there's a connection to a term called the black mirror, which you look at all of our electronic devices, they all have black screens when they're not powered up, and
yeah.
so there's a lot of connections to, the
Yeah.
gadgets that we have.
Wow. Wow. Wait a minute. Yeah, they all have black screens when they're not powered on. Okay.
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And so then, um, the gadgets that we have, we can see them as tools or masters, and sometimes it seems like the technology masters our life, doesn't it? And our time.
Mm, yeah. Wow. Wow.
And isn't it something that this technology, so in the time of, let's say, your great grandparents and my great grandparents, they would never have even known that like mine might not even have known that Africa exists, and your great grandparents may not even have known that the United States exists. But yet in
Yeah.
our time, you and I have technology where we can just
Yeah.
talk
Having a
across
conversation.
in real time, like, there's
Yeah.
no delay,
If not
instant
that I
communication.
turned off the video, would have been chatting and be seeing each other right now. So we're having this
Yes,
conversation.
yes, yes, and it's, this technology has come to a point where, virtually everyone around the world can see images, from somewhere else that 2 or 3 generations ago, they would never even have existed, and they're images and sound, and so you think, in the book of Revelation, it talks about people, it doesn't say they worship the beast, it says they worship the image of the beast.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? That they
Yeah.
worship the image. And today these phones are everywhere, and we pick them up and turn them on, and we walk with them and we communicate, and they're so helpful to us.
Yeah. I think there was a video I saw where I think a photographer, what he did was he took photos of people, using their phones, and then he photoshopped the phone away from the pictures, and then you
Wow.
notice how strange. You see how people were bent down on their phone, people were
Oh,
walking on the road, and they were kind of sucked into it. Without the phone,
wow.
it just doesn't make sense. It seems like as though
Mm,
they were on drugs, or they were kind of possessed or something like that.
wow. Oh,
And
that's so powerful wisdom.
yeah,
That's so
that
powerful.
was that was such a creative way for just to see how those phones make us look, because now it's normalized, because everyone is like, when everybody's doing it, it's not really a big deal.
Mm.
But when you step back, you realize that, wow, that's strange.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And so now we see this, the kind of like what you and I were talking about, and you had asked earlier how technology has changed. Like, we talked about that, even before you hit the record button.
Yeah,
And there's a during my broadcasting career, of course, when you're really in it, you don't always see the transition from one technology to another,
yeah,
because for so long newspapers and television coexisted. But now
yeah,
newspapers are a thing of the past. They can't survive. And then the other component is broadcasting, television. It's no longer what it used to be because it's
Yeah.
given way to social media. And,
Yeah.
I remember as a teenager when cable television came to our small farming community, and we
Yeah.
didn't live in town, so we didn't have it. We had like 2 TV stations.
Wow.
And so then our neighbors, our friends from our church, they got cable, and all of a sudden they had these 12 channels, and some were from the United States and some
Wow.
were Canadian. And it was just this thing of wow. And wouldn't you know it, nowadays it's just like back then it was strange to have cable in your home, cable TV. Now
Yeah.
it's strange to have cable TV in your home because everyone has the internet.
Yeah. You're like, well, what are you using that for? Like,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Wow. I want us to, to talk about how what we've gained and lost with
Mm.
the shift from traditional TV to on-demand streaming and social media.
Man, that's a good question because the reason it's a good question is it's so formative to our society. Uh, because you can be somebody, when I was growing up, we would say someone's an introvert. They like to stay home. Maybe they'd hide in their closet if people were over because they were just so shy and
Yeah.
they didn't have a lot of friends and they couldn't mix and mingle and kind of build up their personality so that they could be outgoing like an extrovert
Yeah.
was. And so now it's so different because we could all stay at home and yet we can communicate around the world with people and
Yeah.
we
So
can
the,
see things we can
yeah.
see things that they should not cause us stress because it's not our problem, but it's actually brought into our house through our devices that someone's saying, "This is important to me, and I'm 1,000 miles away, but it should be important to you."
Yeah.
And my wife and I have this rule: if we can't drive there in 6 hours, it doesn't pertain to us, and we don't have to worry about it. But now, whereas before we could be so alone and individual and not know what was going on, even in our neighborhood, let alone around the world. And now we're just, if we want to find out a special at the restaurant in our town, well, we just go on to our Facebook community for our town. And there it will be. We've got the Legion, the Canadian Legion, which is built originally for soldiers after the World Wars, or we can find out from the diner or one of the other town restaurants in town. We don't even have to call anybody. We don't have to call up, Diana at her restaurant and say, "Hey, Diana, what's going on? What do you have for lunch today?"
Yeah.
It's all online, and so the verbal communication seems to have been taken away from us
Yeah.
because now we type and we can, well, I don't type. I just hit the microphone button and I just speak into my phone and it dictates what I
Yeah.
want. It's like
Yeah.
having this servant and
Yeah.
I don't even have to type. And that has caused me to think a big thing that was before in generations past was penmanship of, writing in cursive script and beautiful calligraphy and so these words on the printed page. And now, I think, boy, I don't even have to know how to spell words. That was a big problem for me in school as a student is
Yeah.
figuring out how to spell and remember which words. And that's just English, let alone like for yourself, the different languages that you speak.
Yeah.
Now, technology will do that for you. And let's say if you and I were out for coffee or tea and a piece of pie and somebody from Russia came walking in and sat down at our booth, we could just hold our phone and put the translator on
Yeah.
and our friend George from Russia, he would just be looking at his phone and then he
Yeah.
would speak in Russian and both of us we would get it in our language.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a difference. What
Yeah.
just it's almost like not not a reversal of the Tower of Babel, but it comes in and it fixes these
uh,
deficiencies maybe in human existence.
yeah. Well, well. Uh, do you still believe that television has a relevance, you know,
Oh yes.
in today's society?
Yes, but in a different way. We start to use tools in different ways that work. And so people will adapt their message. So we're probably not going to have over the air which was kind of free spectrum of wireless signals. We're going to have that coming through the cable or Wi-Fi in our home, or there's still going to be those radio unseen streams of information coming. And then you have that receiver that receives that information and then translates that information into these pictures and sounds that we have.
Yeah.
And so I don't think people are not going to necessarily, well, they might get smaller screens in that maybe people will eventually be wearing those Oculus or the Apple goggles. And so that the images are just going to be on these little glass pieces right in front of our eyes. And my concern with that is then people aren't experiencing other people and physical touch and creation and coming together with their community. But television, that whatever that device is that projects that image is going to continue to be there, because I think partly because it's needed for end time scenarios, but also it's just that it's what people are used to, and somebody wants to make your money their money, and somebody
Yeah.
wants to make my money his or her money. And so
Yeah.
they need a way to show us things to buy. They need a way to show us things, those human fleshly desires. We're still
Yeah.
looking for ways to satisfy those longings and those desires that we have for human relationship, companionship, food, clothing. So yes, television is here just in a different form.
Yeah, I think we're talking about one of the things I know that it's probably going out of fashion is TV
Yeah.
stations, but
Yes.
television that is there, and I don't really see it leaving anytime soon. And the reason I love television so much is is not because of any other thing, but the fact that it has brought families together, right? Sitting down
Yes.
together, watching
Yes.
sports, and
Yeah.
each family has a particular program they can all reference to and crack jokes about, and they get it, they understand it. But now with
Yeah.
the different individual streaming platforms, everybody's just on their own. You're watching the stuff on your phone.
Oh,
Like
I
there's
know.
really no togetherness where you're sitting down with your dad, you're watching the
Yeah.
match or something like that. And probably if you're watching the particular movie on TV with your mom, you're trying to explain the script to them.
Yeah. Right.
They're like, "What
Yes.
happened?" And they're like, "Well, I'm just watching it for the first time." But you're like, "Okay, yeah, this is what happened." You become the movie translator.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and
uh,
then that was the same in my time too when I was a young
yeah,
teenager, and my mom or my dad would be like, "Wait a second, what just happened?" And
what just happened?
then the child is like, "Okay, let me fill you
Yeah,
in."
yeah. That was good bonding time for for most families.
Yes.
Those were
Yes,
good memories.
and also work too. So many years ago, when people would watch a TV show, you all had to watch it at the same time before we could record
Yeah,
shows. And then you'd come to work and you'd say, "Hey, Jim, did you see this? What do you think of
yeah,
that? What do you think's going to happen next?" And so even that was a component of community. Or we'd say, "Hey, we'd be on the school bus. Hey, did you watch Seinfeld last night? Wasn't that funny?"
yeah,
But
yeah,
then people began to be able to record the shows. So then all of a sudden within the community, we weren't watching it at the same time or on the
yeah,
same night as our coworkers or our schoolmates or even family members. And so like you say now, the son and the dad and the mom and the sister can all be watching something different with their with their headsets on and or in different rooms, and we've lost that togetherness of watching movies and shows together.
yeah. I feel like everybody's in their own world because the media they consume is completely different. You're watching
Yeah.
Seinfeld, I'm watching
Yeah.
a different comedian, and then you
Yeah.
mention Seinfeld, and I'm like, who's that? And you're like,
Yes.
wait a minute, you don't know who Seinfeld is? And I'm like, no, really, I don't know. Like, you're kidding me right now. Like, I can't believe. And I've had multiple instances of that. And like someone that is like, I feel like everybody's supposed to know, and then I have conversations, and people are like, "No, I've never heard of that guy." Right? I'm like,
Yes.
"Really?" I'm like, "No, you must be kidding me right now."
Yes.
It's hard to believe.
I know,
Yeah,
and it's very true, and those I real the Orthodox Church, other religious groups, they'll have these icons, that they would these holy images that they wouldn't worship the image, but they would have the image there as a reminder to
yeah,
worship something like that. And so then we talk about these stars like the soup Nazi on Seinfeld, or somebody from Friends, and we'd say, oh, they're like an icon of our society. And
Yeah.
so words kind of get mixed up or lose their meaning over time. But when we think of this is the new normal, this is, we still have to be intentional about building relationships and communicating physically with other people instead of online, because technology makes it so easy.
Yeah.
It'd be wonderful for you and I. We can't physically meet. We can't physically shake hands or give each other a pat on the back or say, "Hey, wisdom, how you doing?" But this technology just in one sense shortens the distance between us, but yet it also then takes away the communication of you and your neighbor, or me and my the fellow across the back alley from me.
Yeah. As you're a creator, you have your podcast, the 5 a.m.
Yes.
podcast. You've been
Yes.
doing that for a while now, a long time.
Yes. Yes, I
uh,
love it.
and you've worked in the broadcasting industry like since you're a teenager. What are some of the golden rules of storytelling, the TV use that we creators can also, adopt and put into our work?
Oh, yes. That is a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it because I had actually just recorded an interview that'll be coming out shortly with a script writer from Hollywood named Michael Haig, and he and I were talking about the most valuable part of that conversation is transformation, and the journey. It could be the journey of a life or the journey of the day of somebody being transformed through their circumstances. And so
Yeah.
many people want an easy life, but none of us have an easy life. And even if mom and dad have a baby and they don't want anything bad to ever happen to that baby, and all they ever do is carry it around, the child will never even learn to walk.
Yeah.
And so, in telling the stories and talking with the people on 5 a.m. podcast, I always want to hear about their challenges. One lady said to me, I had to make friends with fear and the obstacles
Oh,
because I had to see them as helpers on my journey, not enemies that I had to defeat. But they were things that came to me, the fear, the boulders in my path that seemed to slow me down. They actually alert us to the things that need to grow or change in our lives. And that
yeah.
really changed my perspective too, because we all deal with fear, we all deal with roadblocks. And so I've changed my perspective, I've transformed a bit. And I love telling those stories of transformation and change for the positive out of negative in people's lives.
Wow. Wow. Uh, you moved from broadcasting television and you started your own
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes.
I'm curious, is the podcast on TV?
Um, Middle of November, it's actually gonna be on TV in San Francisco,
Yay!
yeah, and in Washington, DC, and Fairfax, Virginia, and then there's also a Roku channel that wants to pick us up in November as well,
Wow.
and we're on FM radio in Atlanta, Georgia, and Denver, Colorado.
Wow. Wow. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yes, well,
Wow.
it's a total God thing because somehow they just found us, and,
Wow.
oh, they said, "Hey, do you wanna have a meeting?" And I didn't click yes. I said, "Yes, I wanna meet with you," but I didn't click yes to put it into their calendar. And
Yeah.
so then I got a call the morning of the meeting. I was getting ready and they said, "Okay, we're canceling because you never said you wanted to meet with us." And I was like, "No, wait,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought I did." But then we met the next week and she said, "You know what? We just wanted a positive podcast on our FM radio station, and I typed it in, and you guys came up, 5 a.m. podcast. Never heard of you before, but then I found you on Facebook, and at the time we weren't even sure if Facebook was doing us any good. We were still a young channel, and
Yeah.
so that was definitely some divine intervention there." Of somebody finding us out of the hundreds of thousands of podcasts that are around, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. I really really love that. For me, just on the final note, well, so as someone coming from television, why did you
Yeah.
decide to start a podcast? Why not just start a a show or program on TV, why did you have to like move and go to podcasting completely different from what you've been doing?
Yes. Oh, well, first off, I love podcasts,
Okay.
and I've been consuming podcasts for 10 years at least, even more. And so I saw, because of my work, because of reading different books, I saw that just like newspapers became a thing of the past, television stations, cable TV, that's going to become a thing of the past. And the thing that people really want, people are tired of having these trophy people and stars and these famous people like thrust into their vision of this is what you have to look like, this is what you have to own, this is what you have to try and emulate and copy. Whereas podcasts are individuals like you and me and other people just telling stories of people just like us. And you see you hear the story of the beggar on the street. Well, all of a sudden he wakes up from this dream and has this great business idea and he turns his life around. And
Yeah.
these stories don't make it to television and newspapers because
Nah,
they're
they're not
focused
newsworthy.
on. Yes, apparently they're not newsworthy, but
They're
yet
not
for the
negative
general
enough.
population. Yes, that's right.
uh,
And so in
uh,
podcasting, anyone can start one, and almost anyone can be a guest because everybody's got a story, everybody's got a thing that they could sell or that they could buy or help their fellow human. And for me, podcasting has become a form of building community away from the big entity of showbiz or government telling us what to do and what to think.
well, for me, I love how things are coming into play. Right, you're
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
now. You now have your podcast on TV stations, on radio stations, and that's
Yes.
itself. It's eventually bringing the positive content that you make in front of
Hmm.
people that need it. That might not even be. They might not even know what a podcast is in the first place, right? But regardless of
Yes.
whether they know what a podcast is or not, they actually need positive stories in their life, and you get in front of them. And I really love that collaboration. Thank you for
Yes.
sharing that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. That's
Yeah,
just so key, that collaboration and community.
yeah. On a final note, right? What message would you love listeners to take away from the World Television Day?
Oh man. Well, first off, I guess be careful what enters your eye gate and ear gate. And we have the privilege and the opportunity to choose what we watch and see and what we present to the world as
Yeah,
well. And so we can choose to exhibit and take in love or the hate, anger or joy. And
yeah,
happiness and joy are two different things, and joy is something that we can have regardless of what we see around us.
yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that message. Where can listeners listen to your podcast and also connect with you?
Yes, 5ampodcast.com is the best spot. Everything's there. We've got our written articles, we've got all our videos, podcasts, and we have a shop button. So yeah, 5ampodcast.com.
Yeah, I would add the link in the description so listeners can just
Yes.
click and go directly to the site. Thank you so much, Mike. It's been an inspiring and delightful conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I've loved it. Thank you, Wisdom, for having me on.
That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.